Great, thank you, Cecilia. And good morning, my name is Peter Zanoni. I'm the city manager for the city of Corpus Christi and also representing Corpus Christi Water here this morning. We want to thank our listening community that's out there, and especially thank the media who's here with us in our city council chambers. We do have KIII TV and Chris Six here with us this morning. So this week a lot has happened in terms of water policy, water supply projects, and I want to highlight some of those issues that took place this week, especially summarizing what City Council discussed this Tuesday in our first Level 1 emergency workshop with the City Council. And before I do that, though, let me begin this briefing with an update on our water supplies. These are our surface water supplies, and they're not the new water supplies that we're bringing on that will total 76 million gallons in about a year to 2 years. So we do have two western reservoirs, Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi, and this morning Choke Canyon is at 7.7% capacity. Lake Corpus Christi is at 8.4% capacity, and so we do have a combined capacity of 7.9%. On our eastern side, Lake Texana is about 53% full. And then I want to highlight this morning our lower Colorado River. We don't talk about that much, but that's an important supply from our eastern supplies. The lower Colorado River is managed by the Lower Colorado River Authority, known as LCRA. They are a very robust organization. Yesterday, one of our teammates spent some time with them. Spent about an hour with them yesterday, understanding the Lower Colorado River's flow, the impoundments that are up a little bit northeast of Austin, and how that river will treat us as the spring and summer and the drought continue. So the summary on the Lower Colorado River is right now it's in decent shape, but if this drought prolongs, even that water source could be tight. So we do want to thank the LCRA for working with us. We're going to try to go up to Austin to meet them and better learn about their organization. They have a very sophisticated monitoring system of that river that originates maybe even before Austin, but at least with the impoundments, and then it makes its way all the way down here to the coast. So drought conditions continue to put pressures on our reservoirs, but we are bringing more water supply on from our groundwater projects, and there is a slight chance of rain this weekend in the region. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that impacts the inflow into our reservoirs. So let's begin with a quick update on our new supply projects. As you know, we have two projects underway in Nueces County, and a third one I won't mention this morning, but the Ed Rochelle Foundation well field is a third site. But the eastern well field in Nueces County, just as a reminder, that one is fully functional in terms of the wells being drilled and equipped. We have a total of 8 wells that today are producing 4.4 million gallons of water a day, 4 to 5 million per day. We could produce 10 million, but we have to adhere to environmental monitoring conditions in the river that is used right now as a conveyance system, so we're doing about half of that. In our western groundwater well field in Nueces County, this is a bigger tract of land, about 250 acres. In total, there'll be 12 wells there over time. Currently, we have 4 wells that are completely in production or completely drilled and that have permanent pumps, 4 of them. One of the wells, though, is down for maintenance, so we have 3 that are running, and those 3 are producing 6 million gallons of water a day. So 6 right now, as of this week, and some of last week from the western well field, 4 to 5 from the eastern well field. On the western well field, we expect to have that one well that is out of operation right now. We expect to have it back on this coming week. Also, in this coming week, we expect to have a 5th well completely up and running. So that'll be 5 wells by this coming week, next week. And then the following week, during the week of the 13th of April, we'll bring on 2 more additional wells in that well field. So by 2 Fridays from now, by April 17th, we should have a total of 7 wells in our western well field, producing 12 million gallons of water a day from that well field. That's on top of the eastern well field. A quick update for you all on our Evangeline groundwater project. This is a groundwater project in the nearby or neighboring county in San Patricio County. The first pipe delivery for that project arrived last Friday. The transmission pipelines, 48-inch pipes, about 600 linear feet, came in last Friday. I want to thank the local media for covering that. Chris Six and KIII both made reference. There were some good pictures just to show the community how substantial this project is. Those pipes are pretty significant, and those are the transmission lines. There'll be a total of 30 miles of pipeline in that over 22,000 acre tract of land to produce water from 24 wells. It is expected that 90% of all the materials will be in by July. So in a few months, 90% of all the materials, that's pipes, pumps, and other items will be in by July. And soon, probably now in the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, contractors working for the city for this project will be on site with construction trailers. And they'll be beginning early work to include building gravel roads, bringing in electricity, and beginning to lay that pipeline below ground. They'll also be working on temporary and permanent storage tanks, as well as a pretty significant pump station that you'll see from Highway 77. So today that project is 60% design, and in fact next week we'll be reviewing the design with Pate Dawson, the design engineer of record. And then on the permits themselves, we do have now an administrative law judge that the Groundwater Conservation District has chosen, and her name is Judge Alicia York, and she has set a date for the preliminary hearing on standing. We know there are 3 contestants on the drilling and transfer permits, and so an administrative judge will listen to their concerns and determine as to whether or not they have standing, is what they call it, how they call it. That hearing is April 28th from 1 to 5 p.m., so that's a Tuesday, April 28th from 1 to 5 p.m. Right now, we know it to be just a virtual meeting. That could change, and we'll let folks know if it does, if you want to attend in person. On seawater desalination, the council took some actions recently, and there's a lot of work going on. Just to recap for the listening community, there are 4 projects at this point that the city council is looking at. None have been approved, but all are kind of in the works with the hopes of one or maybe more than one being approved to move forward. That includes the city's Inner Harbor project, the Harbor Island project with the Nueces River Authority, a Barney Davis location here in Corpus Christi, and then a smaller desal facility at a plastics plant here that is not 100% built out, but CC Polymers is that 4th location. In this month of April, the City Council is expected to consider the Inner Harbor design contract that would design the Inner Harbor to 60%, and so the mayor is calling a meeting next week. And this also was one plan for the end of the month. So with that Inner Harbor, one of the things we're working on is the environmental assessment of the bay system. That includes the Nueces Bay, the ship channel, and then Corpus Christi Bay. And today is another meeting with our far-field modeler. That company is called Spheros, and they'll be meeting upstairs. This meeting's open to the public. It's also broadcast live. That'll begin at noon today on the 6th floor of City Hall. So let's talk now a little bit about stakeholder engagement. One thing we do know is Corpus Christi is a regional water provider, meaning we provide water to a region that stretches 7 counties and has 20 communities that rely on us. And so stakeholder engagement is important, and there's several things this week where we engage various stakeholders. So we're meeting with various sectors of our customer classification or customers. As an example, recently we met with all the school districts. We also met some time ago with all the hospital districts and hospitals to hear their concerns. This week we met with the higher institutions, including Texas A&M Corpus Christi, which is right here in Corpus Christi, and then Del Mar College as well. And we walked through planning scenarios with them and better understood their water needs and their water emergency planning that they have in place. The conversations were productive, it will encourage, and we were encouraged by their engagement. So they're fully engaged, we're encouraged by that, and we'll continue to work with them. Also this week, we met again with large volume users. There's about 20 to 25 entities that we meet with routinely, and we met with them to better understand their framework for how they would mitigate through what could be a level 1 water emergency. We also are working with them to determine their baseline water consumption. Their businesses are cyclical to the year. They have ups and downs depending on the season and depending if they're taken offline for what they call turnarounds. And so we're working with them to develop what it would be considered a seasonal baseline. So if we did have to reduce water use, we'll know from what to take that water use reduction from what starting point. I also want to mention this week we had a very important meeting in a neighboring community. As in Jim Wells County and the city of Orange Grove. The city of Orange Grove is not a CCW, Corpus Christi water customer. We don't provide them water, they're not a customer of ours, but they have had some issues with their groundwater that they've had for many decades to supply water to their community. And so we met with them. I do want to thank Mayor Serp, who was there this week, as well as Todd Wright, the city administrator, and their city attorney, Lucinda Garcia. So Nick Winkleman, the COO of Corpus Christi Water, and myself spent a good hour and a half with them on Wednesday evening to understand issues that they're having with their municipal wells, and to work together to see how can we help them out. They have quite some distance from our well field. The town of Orange Grove, or the city of Orange Grove, believes our well field is impacting theirs. And so we're going to work through these issues. We've already put to work at our expense our hydrogeologist, Steve Young, with Interra. And this morning we received information from Todd Wright. They're providing open book information, and we're doing the same with them. So they have a hydrogeologist, we have a hydrogeologist. We're going to continue to work through this to see, is the city's well field having an issue on theirs? And then if it is, what do we do to fix that? And if it's not, how can we help them out anyway to make sure that city of Orange Grove, which is kind of northwest of Corpus Christi, has water security. Even though they're not a customer of ours, we care about our communities, and we have resources that they might not have, and so we're interested in helping anybody out that we can. Also this week, we met with another water district. This is Nueces County Water Improvement District number 3. We call it Robstown Water District for short. So Robstown is a nearby community. Similarly, they're not a customer of the city. They don't rely on us for water or water treatment. They have their own facility, and they have their own run-of-the-river rights that actually predate the cities back to 1900. We are working with them because the water quality in the river continues to not be as good as it was when the reservoirs were at a higher elevation. There's higher TDS, total dissolved solids, and higher arsenic coming from our reservoirs. And so we put together a proactive plan where they can interconnect into our treated water from Owen Stevens. And that work is nearly done. It will be completed by the end of April. The city helped them in connecting, putting in and installing underground a conveyance line from one of our main distribution lines to their pump station. We just have to bore under a county road to connect everything in. And then they will have access to our water should they need it or want it. And they take pretty routine, probably daily, a couple times a day, tests at their water treatment plant. And so when the total dissolved solids at a too high of a level, they will get water from us. And this is a great example of the city caring about our communities, even those that are not customers of the city or that get anything from us from our Corpus Christi water operation. So I do want to thank the board chair of WCID number 3, Ram Alejandro. And then also Marcos Alanis is their district manager. He runs the operation. So those two gentlemen have been working with us pretty closely for many weeks on this issue. We know them from many years of work with them, so we appreciate them. The city of Robstown is lucky to have them They really care about their community. So that's a little bit on the community engagement. Let's talk now. This may get a little bit dry here, a little technical, but I just want to recap some of the material that we went over with City Council this past Tuesday. That was our first emergency, level 1 water emergency workshop, where instead of a City Council meeting, we didn't have anything on the agenda except for this workshop. And it was a real good workshop, 4 hours of focus on policy issues relative to a level 1 water emergency. This is all planning. There's no indication we're going to go into this emergency tomorrow or next week. But we as a community and really as a region need to be prepared, to be smart and to know how to move forward. In the event we do have to declare a level 1 water emergency. So this is extreme advanced planning, and being a smart community and being a smart region, we took step 1 with City Council this week. So let me just tell you some of the things that we talked about. So we do have a already approved drought contingency plan. City Council most recently approved that about a year ago. We've had that plan for decades, or at least 2 decades, I believe, since the 80s. And in there is some language about what happens if we have to go into a level 1 emergency, and that policy's already been approved by City Council, so the council, unless they want to change it, they don't have to approve it again. So if we declare a level 1 emergency, then some of these policy items take effect immediately on that day of declaration. And just as a reminder, when we declare a level 1 water emergency, what that means is we have 6 months until supply is not enough to meet the total demand of the time. It's not that we're going to be out of water, or it's not that we're going to be out of water. It's that the total supply that we have is forecasted to not be enough to meet the total demand, and that's called a level 1 water emergency. So on that declaration, if and when we do call it, certain things go into effect immediately. One is irrigating landscaping areas would be completely prohibited, and right now it's pretty much prohibited. With the exception of hand watering, things like shrubs and trees and vegetable gardens. There is no watering of lawns here in our region. That's been in effect for about a year. But if we went into a level 1 water emergency, irrigating landscaping by hand would be completely eliminated. So all types of anything in the ground, you wouldn't be able to water with a hand hose. You would, though, be able to water potted plants. So if you had a potted plant or like tomatoes or something in the pots, you could water those, but that's the only hand watering allowed under the drought contingency plan under a level 1 emergency. We spent some time with council talking about this, and there's a lot of conversation in our community, and that is car washing. And so the use of water to wash any motor vehicle, including golf carts, came up this week. Motorbikes, boats, trailers, and other vehicles would be prohibited as well if we went into a level 1 water emergency. And that includes at your home, that includes using municipal water at a car wash facility. Those would be prohibited. So 2 other things we talked to council about that I want to talk to you about now is curtailments, meaning an intentional demand reduction, water demand reduction, and then surcharges, which is an increase in price to drive down demand through economics. So when it comes to curtailment, this is a concept in our drought management plan, and the drought management plan talks about we could reduce use at a minimum no less than 5%, but the range could be much higher depending on the conditions at the time. And so to determine how much to reduce water by and what would be left would be called an allocation. So we would look at the classifications baseline, have a percentage that everybody would be reduced by, and then we would end up with an allocation. And that's kind of the concepts in curtailment. Also, surcharges was discussed with City Council. These are already in the drought contingency plan, and the council would have to reaffirm them because it's a rate change. And so the drought contingency plan has increased costs for water once customers use more than a threshold amount. And so for our residential customers, most of our residential customers use about 4,000 to 6,000 gallons a month. But our surcharge for the residential customer is set at 7,000. So anything above 7,000, there would be a $4 per 1,000 gallon surcharge. And that's similarly applied to other customer classifications like commercial customers. They would have a $4 surcharge, anything in excess of 55,000 gallons. Large volume customers would have a surcharge, and wholesalers like San Patricio Water District also would have a surcharge. So those are the topics that we talked to council to wrap them all together, or have them all make sense, and how would we apply them, is that our modeling that we are doing to show supply and demand, we all showed you those a few briefings ago. It was a scenario A through E. We continue to update those. We know that A and B are probably not likely anymore. That was when level 1 would be enacted in May. Because Governor Abbott relaxed some of our requirements in terms of the Lake Texana, he asked Lake Texana to not curtail us if it falls below 50%, and he also expedited our permits for the western well field. Those two actions alone are bringing more water in the system. So the A and B scenario with a curtailment or level 1 water emergency in May are unlikely at this point. But what we are going to do is update the C, D, and then the E was the most optimistic scenario. We're going to update those in these coming weeks as we get more data from our western well field. That's really going to have a big impact on how far out we can push a level 1 emergency. So in the next couple of weeks, we are going to show council and the community a guiding one option, because that guiding option will be used to determine how much do we have to, if we call the level 1 water emergency, how much would we have to reduce in terms of demand, and that will tell us how much of a percentage does everybody have to reduce by across the board. So it's kind of a stepped process, and that first step will be a forecast of when we could call a level 1 water emergency. How much water do we have to make up for the gap between supply and demand? And then what does that translate to into a percentage cut across the board for residential, commercial, large volume, and our wholesalers? So that material will be shown with the community and with the city council in the second, third week of April. And then we will request city council to approve, just so there's some certainty and some planning. It's not that we're going to go to that level 1 emergency when they approve this in April, but approve these percentages and approve curtailment, approve the percentages and approve the surcharges, so that if we do call a level 1 water emergency, there'll be certainty, especially in the large volume users, about how much do I have to reduce by, and what should I budget, what does my financial position look like for cost for water. So that's coming up in these next couple of weeks. So these next couple of weeks with city council and the media and the community will be important. They most likely won't have an impact on anybody in these next couple of months in April, May, June. But they will get us ready for the forecasted level 1 water emergency, and we're going to show that to the community over these next couple of weeks. So with that, let me just talk to you about the schedule for City Council, and we're going to work with City Council. This is first announced here, and City Council would have to approve some of these changes, but we were looking at having a workshop on the 28th of April, similar to what we did this month, where we had a workshop, the third meeting of the month. But because council needs more information, and we recognize that from this last workshop, we don't think it'd be good for them to vote on something on the mid-April. So the plan was for them to vote on something in mid-April, the 21st, but we think they need more data, so we're going to swap out a council meeting with a workshop as follows. So there will be a council meeting on April 14th. That's our first council meeting in April. That'll be a council meeting. And then the April 21st Tuesday, that was planned to be a council meeting, but we're going to recommend to council, and they probably will approve it, we're going to recommend that become a workshop, so we can get them all the information they asked from this last workshop we had, and get them ready for policy votes on what would be April 28th, that last Tuesday of the month. And that's where we would recommend that they approve curtailment allocations and also approve surcharges, and also make any other adjustments they want to in the drought contingency plan. As an example, in our workshop most recently, the notion or the concept of washing a boat's motor after it's been in the ocean is something we need to discuss. And so right now it's prohibited. Our drought contingency plan says no water to wash a boat or a motor. But we know those motors have to be flushed out after you use them. So there may be some minor modifications like that City Council could consider at that last meeting in the month on April 28th. So more information will be coming out. Just want to share that with you today since we're here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm just going to do some closing comments here, and then we'll go into our Spanish translation, and then we'll have a good half hour to take any questions from the media that's here. So in closing, as you look back, everything I just covered, that's a very high-level summary. It's a lot of work just in 1 week, but we're happy to be doing it for this community, and we know that every action and every step we take helps to keep us safe in terms of water security. We do have a plan, and we're not executing this plan alone. We have federal level help, state level help, and regional partners helping us tremendously. Of course, we need to thank Corpus Christi Water, Nick Winkleman, and our teams here at the city who are working tirelessly to get us past this drought of record. Today, our next couple of steps coming up then, beginning today and next week, includes today at noon is our far-field modeling. There's a community advocacy group of 19 members. They'll get more information from the modeler who's already done some work, and he'll be sharing that with them. So that takes place today. And then as we look ahead to next week, the mayor is expected to hold a special council meeting next week. I think the date is still being determined, but next week, and that would be to focus on the Inner Harbor Desalination project. And we'll be back here next week, depending on the day of that council meeting. It could be Thursday, it could be Friday, so we'll have to be flexible on when our briefing will be next week. Next week, we'll continue to bring more water on and to get ready for several community meetings. That'll be the week after, including at Flower Bluff. We'll be, I think, 2 Saturdays from now in the city of Taft for a town hall for them. And we're also meeting, we're setting up meetings for city councils in Rockport, Portland, and a few other communities as well, so we'll keep you posted on those. So that concludes my remarks from this morning. Again, we want to thank the local media for being here and appreciate you adjusting your schedules. We also want to thank those who are listening remotely. And we thank you for being concerned and for listening and for helping get accurate and best information out to you, your neighbors, and our communities that we serve. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Gabby, who will do a Spanish translation.
Esta es una actualización sobre el suministro de agua y la sequía, el estado actual de agua. Los niveles de nuestros embalses siguen siendo críticos. La capacidad combinada del lago de Corpus Christi y Choke Canyon es de 7.9%. El lago Texana se encuentra al 53% de su capacidad total. Existe un pronóstico de lluvia para este fin de semana, lo que se espera ayude un poco a que estos niveles suban. En cuanto a las actualizaciones de proyectos, en la zona este tenemos 8 pozos produciendo 4.4 millones de galones diarios. En la zona oeste actualmente contamos con 4 pozos en funcionamiento. Este se va a ampliar a 5 pozos para la próxima semana, pero se espera que para el 17 de abril se van a tener 7 pozos produciendo un total de 12 millones de galones al día. El proyecto Evangeline, la entrega de tuberías comenzó el 27 de marzo. La construcción de la infraestructura está comenzando, pero el avance total depende de una audiencia para la obtención de permisos programada para el 28 de abril. El diseño de este proyecto ya está terminado en un 60%. En cuanto a la desalinización de agua de mar, se está llevando a cabo todavía la modelización del campo conocido como Farfield y se esperan datos preliminares para finales de abril. Se ha programado una reunión especial de emergencia del Consejo sobre la desalinización en el puerto interior o Inner Harbor para el 9 de abril. Hemos contado también con participación de las partes interesadas y de la comunidad en toda el área. Esta semana nos reunimos con Texas A&M Corpus Christi, el Colegio del Mar, y hablamos sobre educación del agua y para poder prepararnos para posibles o ante posibles emergencias. También esta semana nos reunimos con representantes del poblado de Orange Grove, en donde estamos brindando asistencia para poder trabajar con sus pozos y ver qué impacto se está teniendo. Contamos con geólogos hídricos que estarán realizando estudios para trabajar juntos y contar con la seguridad del agua, a pesar de que ellos no son nuestros clientes. En cuanto a infraestructura, se encuentra una construcción, una interconexión de emergencia con el Distrito de Control de Agua y Regación del área de Robestown, WCID número 3 del Condado de Nueces. Se prevé su finalización para finales de abril. Este martes tuvimos una reunión especial con el concilio, en donde se enfocó solamente en la planificación en caso de llegar a una emergencia de etapa 1. El plan de contingencia por sequía fue aprobado por el concilio recientemente. Si llegamos a la emergencia etapa 1, significa que nos encontraríamos a 180 días de que el suministro de agua deje de satisfacer la demanda. De declararse, se activarían automáticamente las siguientes medidas. Primero, habría prohibiciones. Queda prohibido todo el riego de jardines y áreas verdes, a excepción del riego manual de plantas en macetas, así como el lavado de vehículos, incluyendo carritos de golf. Habrá restricciones de consumo. Todas las categorías de clientes se verían sujetas a una reducción porcentual equitativa con respecto a su consumo base. Esa base aún no ha sido establecida. En cuanto al consumo residencial, el incremento por cada 1,000 galones de agua adicionales, una vez que se rebasen los 7,000 galones mensuales, el aumento sería de $4 por cada 1,000 galones. El 28 de abril tendremos otro taller con el concilio en lugar de la reunión normal, esperando que ese día se aprueben algunas resoluciones y ajustes. En resumen, contamos con un plan establecido y estamos desarrollando el marco de acción en este momento, a fin de estar preparados para actuar en caso de que resulte necesaria una declaración por emergencia. Seguiremos teniendo reuniones semanales para seguir estableciendo normas.
Now we're turning it over to questions, but I do have some from Colleen with the Texas Tribune that I'm going to start with. So she asked, council members discussed the drought surcharge exemption fee. Could you discuss what this exemption is? How much is the fee? How many customers have paid for the exemption fee? And when does the exemption become effective for those paying it?
Okay, what was the reporter's name?
Colleen with the Texas Tribune.
Colleen? Okay, that was from Colleen from the Texas Tribune. So Colleen is asking about a voluntary rate increase that large volume users pay. This was established 8 years ago, and it has an odd name, but I like to refer to it as an insurance program. And so essentially large volume users, big industry like Valero and Exxon and Citgo, who consume a lot of water, wanted to kind of prepay or have insurance so that in the event we ever did go into a level 1 water emergency, they wouldn't have to pay then more for water because they've been paying it all along. And so today that rate is 31 cents for every 1,000 gallons of water that they buy. And we have about 10 or so companies that buy this insurance. And it generates about $6 million a year. And so if we did a level 1 water emergency and the council enacted surcharges on rates, these 10 companies that have been paying into this fund or buying this insurance for the past 8 years, their rates would remain the same. Now, at City Council on this Tuesday, and working with our local newspaper here, the Caller Times, people have asked, well, what is the financial difference? You know, are we losing money with this program, or are we getting more money? And so we did an analysis this week that took 8 years of payments, meaning from when it started through the rest of this calendar year, and we compared that to a price increase in the surcharge for 6 months, assuming 6 months. And essentially, it's nearly a break even on that comparison, with nearly break even with more money coming in if we had the surcharge. That's if you only look at it for 8 years. But if you say they're going to pay the surcharge for 10 years, because that's more likely, in fact, they'll pay it indefinitely. They've only been paying for 8 years because that's how long it's been in effect. But if we assume they paid for 10 years, and we compare 10 years worth of surcharge payments at 31 cents a thousand, and compare that to 6 months of increased price due to surcharges, we make more money or we bring more money in with the insurance program. So it could be, it depends on how you want to put the data together. We used 8 years because that's all that exists today, but we know they'll probably be paying for many, many years into the future. And so they're essentially prepaying for when or if a level 1 emergency comes into effect. And I think financially to the city, it's actually a better financial gain to Corpus Christi Water and our water wastewater accounts than having them pay a higher amount for a limited amount of time.
And she does have one more question.
Okay.
So there were issues at the NRA that were brought up this week. How much of a role does the NRA play into Corpus Christi's water situation?
Right, so the Nueces River Authority, there was a situation that occurred this week with an employee who has waged some, I don't know what you call them, allegations, or made some statements. A retiring employee made some statements about leadership and about some of the work that has been done at Nueces River Authority. So that is a Nueces River Authority issue to address right now. The Nueces River Authority is not a department of the city. They don't report to the city. The city council does not appoint their board members. Their board members are appointed by the governor, and that's why this week you saw Governor Abbott ask for an investigation on these statements that were made. So we're going to rely on the state and the governor and the River Authority for them to analyze this situation that's going on and assess it in an independent way. And then we'll get that information and determine how to move forward. So this city and city council, with my recommendation, did provide $2.7 million to Nueces River Authority as a reservation fee for water that could come from their Harbor Island desalination facility if it's built in the future. I looked at the contract again yesterday, and the statements that were made by the employee, the contract that we have that provided the dollars for the reservation fee, the contract that we have is not impacted by these statements. It's not. It was a pretty limited scoped contract, and so to include that there is no refund stated in the contract, so even if we ask for the money back contractually, they don't have to give it back because the contract that was approved said there's no refund. And so the dollars were given as a reservation fee for 50 million gallons of water, and those dollars, this is one thing I'm going to make sure we get. Those dollars are being spent for this project. And so myself, Chris Six, have been at their board meetings, and they have approved quite a few contracts totaling millions of dollars for design of a conveyance system. They have hired consultants. They've hired consultants to model. They've hired consultants to help with funding. They've hired employees, and they've put some big dollars on some big contracts for design, and that'll turn into construction as well. So our $2.7 million, we'll see how that money was spent and is to be spent. It does say in our contract that those dollars need to be spent to advance this Harbor Island desal facility. And so we'll check into that as we move forward. And so we look forward to getting the independent report that the governor has asked for, and we also look forward to the work that the NRA may do themselves to assess these statements that were made by this employee. Rachel? Yeah, Rachel?
I want to follow up on the statement related to the NRA, because at the end of the day, if the NRA, the allegations are that it misrepresented the amount of reservation fees when it spoke to the city council. So if there was a misrepresentation, could there be a way to claw back the $2.7 million?
Right, so the statements that were made, I didn't bring them down here with me, but it was something like at the time, John Byram, the president or CEO, said he had reservations at a higher amount than what maybe he really had. And so I would have probably still recommended we enter into a reservation agreement with John Byram and the NRA, because we want to secure a position in that project if it does materialize. We wanted to make sure that we could buy at least 50 million gallons of water, and we wanted to be party to the distribution network. Initially, the NRA was not going to even be coming close to Corpus Christi. They were going to take it further north to San Antonio. And so by us participating and partaking in the reservation fee, they have now shifted the direction of the pipeline so that we can have better access to it. If it does materialize one day, it'll save ratepayer millions of dollars because it's closer. Their pipeline will be closer to our connection point. So that is the issue, I think, of the most material in the statements from the individual or the employee, which is that John Byram set a number here at the city council that was higher maybe than what he really had on the books. And that's where we don't know for sure. And so we're going to have to wait on the state's independent assessment as well as the NRA's independent assessment to see what took place, what is the truth. And we do have the contract, and our city attorney and myself reviewed it yesterday, and will continue to work through it. I don't have an answer to the question of if he said something that was not accurate here, can we get our money back? I don't know the answer yet. We'll have to have our attorneys help us with that. I do know in the contract it does say there is no refund. You can't, there's no refund. I don't know if that means for any and everything, or just if we ask for a refund for, a routine reason. Yeah.
I want to pivot now to groundwater and something that you said 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, you said that the city's wells are drilled to 800 feet, and we're talking about the eastern and western well fields, and that clay layers separate your pumping zones from rural domestic wells at 300 to 500 feet, and that you have high confidence that there's no impact on those shallower wells.
Right.
But I pulled the well records that are filed with the state, and that shows that screened intervals, which are the sections that are actively pulling water, begin as shallow as 416 feet on these wells. So that's within the depth range that you cited. Are you relying on what data to show that this is not impacting Orange Grove, other well owners, et cetera?
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel, for the technical analysis. And I may have Nick explain the screening intervals, but the well is drilled between 700 and 800 feet. Some are at that 800. Most are probably right in between 700 and 800 feet. Let me speak to how do we know that water levels aren't dropping in the region or in the aquifer. So at both our eastern well site and our western well site, we have monitoring wells. That's a separate well that has a static or automatic reader of what the water levels are. On top of that, we have several partners that we've identified and that have either called us and said we want to be partners with you, or that we've asked to be. One of those includes a volunteer fire station up in the Bluntza area who has a well. And so when we look at our monitoring wells, both at our western and eastern and several of these other areas, there is no change in the water elevation, meaning even with the production that we've been doing on the eastern well field for months and the new now in the western, the water table based on these test wells is not dropping. It's not lowering. That's one of the compelling things we talked to Todd, the city administrator in Orange Grove, is that we find and the hydrogeologist that works for us also is trying to wrestle with that notion that if the water tables aren't dropping at our well field, how could they be dropping at their well field? And then how could the well fields that behave where the water is flowing north to south, if the water flows north to south, as our hydrogeologist says, how could Orange Grove not have the water if we have it? It would be coming from them first down to here. So those are some of the things. But let me have Nick talk about the screening intervals. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Nick Winkleman, Chief Operating Officer of Corpus Christi Water. There are some differences between the eastern and the western well field. The western well field, the average depth of the outer 20-inch cemented casing is 515 feet. So that is of all the wells on the western well field that we have drilled to date. So it's often referred to as a casing point. So that 20-inch casing point, the average of all the wells we've drilled to date on the western well field is 515 feet. They do vary, and they vary 10 to 15 feet depending on elevation. The screened intervals and the targeted formations in the western well field are anywhere from that point to approximately 800 feet plus or minus, and I don't have all the well constructions in front of me. What we do know is in the vicinity of the western well field, the typical livestock and residential wells are 250 to 300 feet. In fact, we did an area search around the western well field, and the wells that targeted the same depth, there were a couple, but they were historic city of Corpus Christi wells drilled along the river. The eastern well field is a little bit different. Some of those initial screens are a little bit shallower. They're just a little bit above the 500 feet like you referenced. But the other difference in the eastern well field is the residential wells surrounding the well field, they're typically 50 foot in depth or so. The water level is much shallower in the eastern well field. And then, as the city manager said, we have a strong monitoring program that continues to get stronger because we will be doing additional monitoring wells in the western well field. And then those are equipped, some of the monitoring wells are equipped with pressure transducers so that we can monitor the water levels. Some aren't as of yet, just because it's all being equipped in the as the western well field comes online.
This follow-up question would actually be for you, Nick. Some experts have said that the city's monitoring wells are not really giving you a complete picture because of the proximity to the river. And so there may be some recharge in those wells from the river. Could you address that?
I think if you, I like the question. I think one thing it's important to look at is the level of the river. Certainly the river is not at full capacity, and we can all understand that. The other thing to note is we have and continue to identify seeps or springs that are coming into the river because of the low level of the river. So it's a couple of things to note. The other thing to remember is, as what was stated earlier, is we do know there's a number of clay layers that are alternating between the different formations. So the monitoring wells are at different depths. There are some at 50 feet. There are some at 200 to 300 feet. And then like in the western well field, we have some much deeper than that. So that allows us to measure the levels in different sections of the aquifer. So it's important to note. There would definitely be the shallower wells that are 50 feet or less, I would say are certainly affected by precipitation and certainly drought conditions, where the wells that are substantially deeper and that target formations well below those alternating confining layers, that water isn't impacted on seasonal fluctuation is what we talk about. And that's really the rainwater and the climate.
This one's for Zanoni. So this is from Stephanie Lauber, Chris 6 News. According to the CCW dashboard, billed water decreased for all users except large volume users. How will CCW hold these users accountable for not doing their part to conserve?
And it's Jacob, right? Jacob?
Yes, sir.
Can you repeat the first part of the question again?
According to the CCW dashboard, billed water decreased for all users except large volume users.
Right.
How will CCW hold these users accountable for not doing their part to conserve?
Right, so that's a good question. So Jacob with Chris 6 News is asking about charts that we showed City Council this week, and you can see it probably on our, maybe accessible in some of our website information, but what it shows is that our residential accounts, residential customers, at least here in Corpus Christi, have reduced consumption quite a bit in the past 2 years. And our charts clearly show that. I think it's somewhere between 2,000 gallons a month, right, on average, or 1,500?
It's somewhere in there, yeah.
Between 1,000 to say 2,000, just as a range. So the residential customers have noticeably reduced consumption as we went into what is stage 3 that we're in today. And that primarily comes from no outdoor watering and covering swimming pools, that type of thing. What we saw on the commercial accounts is a similar, not as pronounced, but a similar reduction in water consumption over the past 2 years compared to 3 years ago. And that's probably also from outdoor watering, landscaping that are at commercial accounts. And then finally, what we did see is that 2 of the biggest customer classifications, the large volume user, and then our wholesalers, like a Sanpat Water District, who sells a lot of water to industry as well, they have remained flat. They have remained steady. They have not decreased water consumption. And some of that is explained by what they use the water for. They use it for processing of fuels, of plastics, of steel. And there's been no mandate from the city to mandatorily cut back reduction in water. And so they're continuing with their processes of making petrochemical products and fuels, and they really can't reduce consumption, or they'll have to turn off operations, either whole sections of a plant or whole plants. What they have told us, and we can't confirm it because we don't work there, and we don't have access to their data, but what they have told us is that they've put in water-saving technologies in recent years, and some of them have demonstrated less water consumption. But when you look at the total aggregate of that classification, their water levels have stayed consistent. So what we talked to City Council about this week is that if we do go into a level 1 water emergency and there is a mandatory demand reduction, if there's an allocation, or if all these words are kind of interchangeable, if there's a curtailment in water use, there will be a prescribed reduction that all large volume users will have to adhere to. And I think Chris Hicks did a good job in clarifying what I had said, where it would be tough to enforce that. But we've talked to them more recently, and they're aware that we might have to do things like cut their service entirely or turn valves off so that they might not get the amount of water they are hoping to get if they're not living up to their required reduction in a level 1 water emergency. The issue with that is we have to be real careful because you're dealing with plants that are handling highly explosive materials. And if we just out there in the middle of the night turning valves and the plant blows up, that's not a good scenario for anybody. So it's going to be, that's why we have good working relationships with all the plant managers. So they do have to adhere to, in the future, if we prescribe them, reductions in use to push off a level 1 emergency where supply doesn't meet demand. And if they don't, we do have remedies like, first would be to fine them, take them to municipal court, and then secondly would be to manually turn off water to them. We just have to be careful because they're dealing with explosive materials, and it wouldn't be good for the employees of the region if something like that happened.
Good morning, Peter. Michael Gibson, Channel 3 News. Are you disappointed in the eastern well fields because of the water coming out is so salty? And how much in total dollars did we spend on those eastern well fields? And how much water are we getting out of them right now?
Right, yeah. We anticipated the water to be more salty. We expected it to be similar to what it is, what we found it to be, which is in that 3,000 parts per million. Is it million? Yeah. Parts per million. So the TDS is a measure of salt and other constituents, but 3,000 is about the readings out of those eastern well fields. What the eastern well fields allowed us to do is put water into the river immediately, about 8 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah, about 10 months ago.
About 10 months ago. So already the system, our water supply system, has benefited from, albeit it's not 10 million gallons a day, it's been about 4 to 5. So the water system is benefiting, our supply is benefiting. That property we owned outright. We didn't have to close, we didn't have to do surveys, we didn't have to wait for property title assessments. What those eastern well fields allowed the city to do is put in 8 wells immediately and then work with TCEQ to discharge that water into the river as a conveyance system. So we are proud of that project. There's no regrets, there's no remorse. The dollars spent were...
So it's 18 million, but we have a 30 million grant.
Okay, we spent 18 million on that project, but State Representative Denise Villalobos helped get this region money. A total of 30 million is what we have. So that project's fully funded by the state. That doesn't have any impact to ratepayers. Thanks to the good work of Denise Villalobos, our representative here, that works in Austin on our behalf. So the plan ultimately for that project will be to continue to use it. We do want to try to we are working with TCEQ to produce 10 million gallons from all 8 wells and discharge that into the river. But we're beholden to this environmental water quality plan right now, and we're trying to get a relaxing of it since our lake levels are below 10% now. A third option, or another option I should say, is that water ultimately could be conveyed via pipeline one day to a reverse osmosis plant that's being built at Owen Stevens. So it's still a good project. It's a good project for right now because it immediately put water into the system and continues to do so. It's a good project for the future for auxiliary intermittent water that can be injected into the river. And it could be a good project for the long term in terms of having a lower quality TDS if we were to reverse osmosis that water to an 800 level instead of a 3,000 level of TDS.
Should we have been, now that in hindsight, cutting our water use severely sooner than later because we're going down to the wire?
So we did. We've done that, and that's what the chart shows City Council. When we entered stage 3 water restrictions, I think they're probably some of the most severe in the state, certainly the country. So all outdoor watering has been prohibited for about a year. And so if you look around that community, it's pretty evident. And that should be reciprocated across our region of 7 counties. So all of the customers who get water either directly or indirectly through a wholesaler should have done that. And so water consumption that we consider discretionary has been reduced substantially, and we see that in the charts. We know, and we're talking to a lot of national media outlets who don't maybe have the experience that you all have here with our community. What we do know is this area uses, customer class in this area uses about 50 to 60% of all of our water every day goes to large volume users. And the water used for them is considered essential because if they have to not use the water, that means they have to turn down operations. That means they have to turn off plants. They have to maybe let employees go. They're not making fuels and plastics and steel and other petrochemical products. So water for them is essential. So until we get to a level 1 water emergency, they won't be reducing consumption most likely. And I think we did everything we could do to get to this point, which is we had our stage 3 discretionary water reductions put in place, and we're bringing on more supply. And so I think if we had triggered more severe water curtailments in stage 3, we'd have a significant impact on the economy here. And that's one of the things that we're looking to not do, is to disrupt the economy unnecessarily at this point.
Okay, and I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
The monitoring plan for the western and eastern well field. I know that you're in conversations with TCEQ. Some sources tell me there is not an appetite at the state to waive that monitoring plan. How confident are you that the city can get that waiver? We've heard the same thing, Rachel Cloud from Chris Sick. So TCEQ is pretty concerned about total dissolved solids or salt content into the river. And our position with them has been, locally here, we would want saltier water in the river than no river at all. And if we're trying to protect aquatic life in the river, having some water in there is better than none, because if there's no water in the river, there won't be any aquatic life in the river. So it's that balance of trying to manage TCEQ's environmental concerns, which we support. We support that agency. They've done a great job. They have some great teammates there that keep the state safe from an environmental standpoint. It's a delicate balance of saying, you know, if there's no water in the river, if the river continues to shrink, it has a big impact, a big ripple impact on the river system. They call it charging, but if there's no water in the system, it takes a long time to charge it back up when there is water. So TCEQ, with their regulatory analysis and their concern for the environment, we share it. We share some different views as well, which is we see the alternatives as being better than not putting as much water in. Better because, 1, there will be water in the river. Better because, 2, it will dilute arsenic that's coming out from our reservoirs as these last amounts of water are coming out. And better because, 3, we have water for the region. And so that water has higher TDS when you take it to Owen Stevens treatment plant and blend it with 70 to 80 million gallons of water. The TDS becomes back to the normal levels that we generally see, and arsenic becomes non-detect, and that's proven by a recent TCEQ quarterly inspection of our water, where at the Owen Stevens treatment plant, after everything's blended, there is a non-detect of arsenic, where at the lake levels right now, arsenic is nearly two times the amount that it should be.
So we're trying to weigh these positives with the TCEQ concern, and we'll continue to work with them. Ultimately, they have to decide. We tell them what we know and try to convince them to see our position, and if they don't, then the result is we'll have less water, and we could enter a level 1 water emergency sooner than later based on that analysis from TCEQ.
I just had one more question. How would you describe the fears and complaints being made by some of the smaller communities in the area about the projects you guys are involved with? Is it unfounded fear, and are you sure?
So we're going to rely on the experts, our hydrogeologists, ones that work for the city and ones that they have, to make sure that what we think is right. I did caution, and I did caution last week that jumping to conclusions and jumping to statements locally and nationally when we don't have all the facts is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the region. It's not a good thing for collaboration, and it's not a good thing for getting through this drought of record. So in our meeting, as an example, with Orange Grove, we talked to the administrator there and their mayor and city secretary, and just encourage them to continue to call us directly. If there's an issue, I have a cell phone, Nick has a cell phone, which is with us all the time, so call us. Rather than putting out statements or issues that might not be exactly 100% accurate, or that could be mitigated with a quick phone call. So we care about the region. Our drive up to Orange Grove, which is well out of this county and not even in it's not a customer of ours, demonstrates that. We care about communities like Orange Grove. We care about communities like Robstown, who aren't our customers. And so we have to collaboratively work together. We know groundwater, which is where most of the concern is coming from, is a shared resource if you have a well. And managing it together is the best for all parties. And so that's why we're committed to doing that. And that's why we're committed to investing dollars in our hydrogeologists and our modeling. That's why we're committed to having test wells. That's why we're committed to having a free program for anybody that has a well that we can go on their property if they want us to test water quality and depth of water. It's a free program that's in this region. And so we have proven care for the community, and it's just not lip service. And but we do need to collaborate and talk with each other directly. And if it takes us driving somewhere for an hour, we'll do that. And that's what we need to do more of, to make sure what might be thought to be happening either is or isn't. We want to confirm it and then make adjustments if necessary on both sides of a conversation like that.